Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. It's 12 o'clock in Warsaw. And we begin with breaking news from Lithuania. Lithuanian Prime Minister Gitautas Paluckas has resigned as the leader of the government and his political party, the Social Democrats. Now, this decision comes following investigations into his past business dealings. The development follows a statement of one of Paluckas' coalition partners. The leader of the Democratic Union declared his party would not remain in the governing coalition if Paluckas continued to serve as prime minister. Thursday morning, Lithuania's Financial Crime Investigation Service raided the offices of a company owned by Paluckas' sister-in-law. The company had received European Union subsidies and used them to purchase battery systems from a company partially owned by the prime minister. Lithuanian President Gitautas announced Paluckas' resignation to the media on Thursday morning. Paluckas confirmed the news via a statement released through his party, the Social Democrats. He became prime minister in December of last year. It remains to be seen who will succeed him. And now on to news from Ukraine. At least 7 people were killed, including a child, and 88 more were wounded after a swarm of Russian drones and missiles attacked Kyiv. The overnight attack came shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to impose new tariffs on Russia within 10 days unless the Kremlin agrees to halt its offensive operations in Ukraine.
I am here at the scene of one of Russia's overnight strikes on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Ukrainian authorities say 7 people have been killed, including a 6-year-old child, and more than 80 injured. However, as you can see behind me in the Sviatoshinsky district of Kyiv, search and rescue operations are still underway, so that number may continue to rise throughout the day. Ukrainian authorities say Russia launched some 309 drones and 8 cruise missiles onto Ukrainian territory, targeting not just the Ukrainian capital, but also Dnipro, Poltava, Sumy and Mykolaiv regions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky released a statement on Thursday morning condemning the attacks. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Since nightfall, our rescuers, firefighters, medics and all the emergency services have been working at the sites of Russian missile and drone attacks. Dnipro, Poltava, Sumy, Mykolaiv and Kyiv regions were affected. The capital was the main target of a massive strike with considerable damage to infrastructure. In one of the residential districts, an entire staircase in a high-rise building was destroyed. As of now, 6 people have been killed, including a 6-year-old boy. My condolences to all the affected families. We also know about dozens of wounded people, and we are providing them with the necessary assistance.
Now, Kyiv residents have also been expressing their feelings about that Thursday morning barrage from Russia. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
There was a second air raid alert. I got up, took my phone and saw that 5 cruise missiles were headed for Kyiv. I tried to wake up my wife, but then there were explosions, and that was it. Our daughter is now in the hospital.
I don't have windows left in my kitchen, but I came out here to help. I came to call an ambulance and the emergency services. I was lying down when I heard something flying. I dropped to the floor and the wall collapsed on me.
So as you can see, there is still a lot of anger here in Ukraine as Russia continues to strike civilian residential areas with increasing regularity, causing death and destruction, like you see behind me. These are scenes which are happening far too frequently for Ukrainians. It's Oz Kataji reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev is entering very dangerous territory, U.S. President Donald Trump said in a post on social media. The comment follows Medvedev's recent statement that Trump's, quote, ultimatum game with Moscow poses a threat to Russia and pushes the United States towards war.
I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care. We have done very little business with India. Their tariffs are too high, among the highest in the world. Likewise, Russia and the USA do almost no business together. Let's keep it that way. And tell Medvedev, the failed former president of Russia, who thinks he's still president, to watch his words. He's entering very dangerous territory.
A Officials from around the globe are gathering in Finland for the Helsinki 50+ conference, marking the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act. The event will begin with speeches by Alexander Stubb, Volodymyr Zelensky, and Antonio Guterres, and will end with a screening of the Helsinki Effect documentary.
Apart from the keynote speeches, officials attending the conference will also engage in several discussion panels. Among the topics are how to strengthen respect for the foundational principles of European security and what we can learn from the past 50 years, and what are our aspirations for the next 50. The Helsinki conference traces its origins through the early years of the Cold War, with the shift towards détente in the 1970s of meetings. Leaders of 35 nations signed the Helsinki Final Act. The agreement dealt with matters such as territorial integrity, economic issues and human rights, including reunification of families divided by international borders.
Power should be with independent institutions, yelled protesters on the streets of the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv on Wednesday. The protest gathered 1,000 people who oppose restricting the independence of Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies.
My main reason here is to ensure that the president signs the draft law restoring the independence of NABU and SAP. This has been publicly stated and the issue is scheduled for consideration. Therefore, I believe it is necessary to be here.
I decided to come here to unite with young people in the same way, to convey my position and to explain why we defend the independence of NABU and SAP. My demand is that power should be with independent institutions, and I am waiting for the vote tomorrow on the draft law that will cancel the amendments that took away the independence of NABU and SAP.
And now we're going to take you to images and video footage of what you're seeing. There is the Ukrainian parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, who is holding discussions before voting to restore the anti-corruption bodies. We will be back to you as this story develops, as the voting takes place. Once again, those are live. That's a live footage of the Verkhovna Rada in Ukraine. And what you're seeing there is former President Petro Poroshenko. Ukraine's PrivatBank has won a fraud case against its former owners. A London court has ruled that two oligarchs misappropriated almost $2 billion from the bank through a sham loan scheme.
Ukraine's largest lender, PrivatBank, has pursued billionaires Gennady Bogolyubov and Igor Kolomoisky in English courts since 2017. Now the two oligarchs have been found jointly and separately liable for around $1.9 billion. Igor Kolomoisky once supported President Volodymyr Zelensky, but the two have fallen out. And in 2023, Kolomoisky was detained on suspicion of fraud and money laundering. Gennady Bogolyubov, on the other hand, illegally left Ukraine according to Kyiv investigators. PrivatBank, once owned and managed by Bogolyubov and Kolomoisky, was nationalized in 2016 to prevent its bankruptcy.
Following France and UK, now Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced on Wednesday evening that Canada will recognize Palestine as a state at the UN's General Assembly meeting in September. Israel and the United States have already denounced the decision, saying it rewards Hamas and harms the efforts of achieving a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
The spokesperson for the Polish Foreign Ministry has reaffirmed Warsaw's 1988 recognition of Palestinian statehood as more UN member states are openly considering following suit. Now, the international initiative was kick-started following a UN conference on the war in Gaza earlier this week. Paweł Wronski, the spokesperson for the Polish ministry, spoke to TVP World as well as to public broadcaster Polish Radio on Wednesday to reaffirm Poland's commitment to a two-state solution for the Middle East conflict. He also promoted peaceful coexistence between Israel and a future Palestinian state. Finally, he announced that Poland would allocate an additional $1 million in humanitarian aid for Palestinians. You can read more about the story on tvpworld.com. Reports are coming out of Serbia that a major student-led march is to take place in Belgrade today. The protest aims to block major intersections and the city's central bridge. TVP World spoke to a former rector of the University of Belgrade to discuss what we can expect from the march and what's likely to follow.
Well, I think we can expect a lot of people today. It's, these things are accumulating. We've been protesting for more than 10 months, as you know. This tragedy in Novi Sad was just the tip of the iceberg. It was a really tragic event that led to the death of 16 people, but it also shows a massive use of let's say, extent of corruption in Serbia in major infrastructural works, but in general, all aspects of life. And this is something that for young people especially is unacceptable, but I think it's unacceptable to all of us. And in that respect, not only students, but people and citizens all over Serbia are demonstrating for rule of law and independent institutions. And as you can see, every few days we have some kind of incident where we see the abuse of police for the needs of a political party. Generally, we have a very disturbing situation in Serbia where we also now see a positive aspect, and that is the unity of citizens and students trying to, through peaceful means, without actually confronting the police, fight for a better Serbia. This mass protest should be a reflection of all of these problems, and also to show the government that the protests have not died down, even though we are at the peak of the summer period, but the people want change and that they will insist on it. And more or less, this can only happen through snap elections.
And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for more news, features, and commentary.